Hello friends and everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. So today we're going to continue on, or is it continuing or start our flight reservation project. I've already made a first video in which I spoke about the overview, how the system is going to look like. I also introduced you to a blog whereby I explained the description or the details of the system. We went through that in that video. So if you haven't checked that video yet, please check the video description to watch it. Now in this video, we're going to look at building our authentication API. Now, if you check the description that I provided, we're going to have some, I think, 4 key responsibilities with a framework. Now here we have an airline management, booking and transaction, and etc. And the last part here is we're having authentication and authorization. For backend, we're using API and now gRPC. So I decided to go in for gRPC for the authentication so that we can register user, we can log in user, we can get claims, we can generate tokens, and etc. Since we're going to be building an API and consume it in a client, which is maybe Blazor WebAssembly, we need to use JWT tokens where we can have access to our claims and etc. So I decided to use the gRPC for the authentication. I've already made a vivid video, explaining how to start with gRPC. Okay, in this video I'm going to show you, but if you want to get more detail, then check the video description to get it. Actually, all the concepts that you're going to put them together here, I've already made videos on them. So if you have been following me, then this is going to be very easy for you. If not, I'll also make the explanations available, but we're not going to waste time since we have this a big project. You want to move faster, and I believe you love that. All right, so if you are happy with this, give me a thumbs up, like this video, subscribe, so it can pushes me to come out with this amazing episode, so we can all learn together. All right, so let's go. Now that we know that we're going to build our authentication and authorization API using gRPC, let's see. I was also thinking about, I was contemplating between the number of the duration that I should use in recording an episode. So I made it clear in the web video that my audience, a cherished viewer like you, should come out with a suggestion, the duration of the video or an episode. And I think most sessions that I got was between 20-25 minutes until I had the last one, which is 7 hours ago, and he said that he thinks 30 minutes is not that great, because this video is going to bring out a chunk of ideas, and I think in development processes 30 minutes is too short. So I think minimum should be 1 hour, and I think I'm in love with this comment, so let's take to 1 hour or more than that, but I'm going to make it in breaks. So maybe if you want to rest, if you want to pause it and the next day you continue on, I'll make it available for you. So check whilst you're listening at where we're going to be break. I'll tell you, okay, so let's have some break. You can break here, taking some coffee, some water, and now hop into it again. All right, so let's see. I'm going to close this. We're going to launch our Visual Studio 2022. If you haven't launched yours, then do that. Let's create a solution, which is going to be a blank solution. Then we're going to add our first service, which is going to be the gRPC. The subsequent videos, whilst we create the videos, we're going to be adding the various services. So for now, let's do what matters. Okay, let's create a solution for that. Now that we have this project created, if we check from solution, we have our solution created, demo flight reservation solution. Then we have our first API, which is identity API, and the framework here is the gRPC. Okay, now there are some packages which will be useful in this project. So let's get all the packages that we need installed. All right, so these are the packages that we will need in this project. Now we need Fluent validation for validating our models or our DTOs. We need gRPC.tools so we can have access to this gRPC Protobuf files and etc. Aside from that, we have this map star and now with dependency injection so we can map it and now use DI. We need mediator so we can implement the CQRS pattern. Then we need JWT from Microsoft so we can create a token. We need JSON transcoding so we can expose our gRPC service to an API as a RESTful API. Then we know we need this identity so we can implement identity manager. We need EF core with 2 so we can update, perform database migration. And lastly, we have the SQL Server so we can have access to SQL Server database. All right, so these are the packages that we need. Now, if you haven't installed them, kindly pause the video and try to install them one after the another. Are you done? Great. Let's move on. The next thing that we're going to be doing here is we're going to create our models. Models are the domains that we're going to be using in this authentication, talking about create user and a refresh token. And so all the models that we need, let's get them here. So when you look at this, these are the two models that we need. We need an app user, which inherits from the default identity user. In there, we have some default properties such as email, password hash, phone number, and a whole lot. And you want to add full name so we can get access to the user's full name. Then we have a refresh token where we're going to save the refresh token being generated alongside with the token itself. We're going to have an ID as a primary key with auto seed. Then we're going to have token as well, that is the refresh token itself. We're going to have the user ID and also the expired at. So the user ID is going to be like a foreign key that is going to link this database to the identity or app user table. I think the two tables, not database, two tables. All right, so now that we have these models created, let's go and create an infrastructure which contains our DB context and also our repository, where we can get access to the a database. So you can see from here that we are creating our DB context. Now we're inheriting from identity DB context so we can have access to identity manager. Then we create a refresh token over here. So this is the table that we're going to create, and that's going to be the name. The columns are going to be used in use the properties that we specified in this model. Now let's see the database, because there are some default things that we need to provide, okay, such as the admin credentials. We don't want to be logging in or registering as an admin. So you want, as soon as the app is created, we run that, you want to make sure if there's no user in there, then you want to set the user as a base, which is going to be an administrator account. So let's actually do that. Now with this, before we can continue on, let me just explain what we're doing, then let's see the next thing to do. Now we're creating a class which is known as a database user, and as you can see from here, as soon as the database is created, we want to check if users.any, then we want to do this. So here it is going to return, you're negating it, it's going to return. You're trying to say that before this execute, the users table should be empty. If it is, then go and add the administrator, that is the first user. Then we want to add claims. But since you're going to be using claims not only in this project or this service, we're going to be using the same claims somewhere else. So I want us to create a library that's going to be shared so we can share to this. Because in building microservices, there are some functions or there are some models and methods that you can share. In this case, do not duplicate, create a shared library so you can share between services. And that is what we want to do. Okay, so let's do that. Now, when you check here, you can see we are creating, these are the string variables that we are creating for policies. Now, in our system, we're going to be using policies. So you can have, I think, a dynamic way of doing things. Now, we're going to have an admin policy, user policy, and a manager policy. We're having three basic policies here. That is what the system is going to use. Now, in that, admin and user can have the same policy. That is where whatever thing that the user can see, admin should also see. Whatever thing that the manager can see, admin should also see. So you can see that admin is a super law. So whatever thing going on, the administrator can see it. But when you go to the user and manager, there are some limitations in their access. Then we have a key, we're going to be passed on as a key in our claims. Okay, now let's create roles. So definitely we're going to have three roles: admin, manager, and user roles. Start from this, we're going to have our permissions. So with the permissions, we're going to set our permission based on the CRUD. Can read, can update, can delete, and can create. You see? So admin can decide to give permission to a manager, but with the create permission, that manager will not be able to create it. Will not be able to create. So all components which have the create feature cannot be seen or accessed by this manager. And the next manager can also see if the admin decide to change that claim. So here we're going to be using the claim-based authorization, which is the best for complex projects. So now that we have the static class created for permissions, roles, and policies, we need to now go and create our policy service extension. That is what we're going to be using to register our policy. Now, the reason why we're going to be doing here is when you go to another APIs, we need to also add the same policy. And also even in our client, we need to also add the same policy. So we can have, or we can manage the user access levels. So with this, before this can work, I think we need to install some packages. Let me just comment this. Now let's go and install packages to this. So maybe let's see, do we have Microsoft authentication.jWT? We have this package here, so we can, let's grab this from here. Then let's unload this project, save, and now let's put this project here, this package. Okay, so we're saving this. Let's restart. The reason is we're going to be adding this project to this API. Okay, so whatever package that we installed here can also be used here. So once it's done, let's go and install the rest. So we need Microsoft the extension, that configuration, the abstraction. So let's add these packages. So when you check, these are the 4 packages that we need: JWT bearer, abstraction for configuration. Then we have abstraction for dependency injection. Then we need JWT token. Okay. So when you check what we're doing here, you can see that we are adding our policies. Now we're having 4 policies as we specified on: admin, admin user, user policy, and admin manager and admin manager. So we have 3, 4, we have 5 policies. Great. Now these 5 policies, we first want to add the admin policy. The admin here, that the person should have a role of admin, and then all these must be provided. Like the permission can create should be true, up to update can be true. So all of this should be true, and now the person should have a role of admin before the person can see a component which has been decorated with this authorized with its policy name as admin policy. The same thing applies to the manager, and the same thing applies to the user. So for user, it doesn't need to have any of these rules. All could be false, false, false. What will matter most is the role, and now the person should be authenticated. Now when it comes to admin user, we want admin to be superior, so all component that admin or user can see or manager can see, admin should also see. What do you think? That is the best thing, isn't it? Yeah, admin should be the superior. He can manage and see whatever thing that goes on in the system. So we want to make sure we put all the common claims between the admin and the manager together, and I will do same to the user. So that is what we have in here. Okay, so now that we have this set, we are not only authenticating this using Identity Manager, we're also going to be using JWT. So once we have our claims extension created, let's also create an extension so it can give us, or we can generate or create JWT token alongside with refresh token. So let's handle that. So when you look at this, let me put this in a new line. Now when we check, we are having two methods in our interface. We're going to validate token, we're going to get claims. Now check here, we want to get the claims from this, so we create a handler, and it is coming from, I think, identity.token.jwt. Then we can now read our claims and our return as a list. Now when it comes to validation, we want to create a handler, and then we want to validate this because these are the properties that we set when creating. Now we're going to set the same thing when we are creating. So we have to make sure we have the key, we have the issue, we have the audience, and I'm going to validate time. Now we're going to set this to 0 so we can extract, or we can ensure that it expires in the exact time that we specify. This is very important, so take note. Then here you can see we are storing it, but we are not using it for anything. We just want to validate this, so we can even get rid of this. Now if this is able to execute, then it means the token it has expired and it is validated. It has the issue, it has the audience, the time is not up, you see. So then it will now return true. As soon as one of these fails, then you're going to throw an exception where we can catch it and I return false as token not valid. So this is what we need to do for our token service, which validates and also get claims. Okay. Now what is the next thing that we can do? We can also go in there and create our authorization middleware. Now what this middleware is going to do that, this middleware can get the token from the header, split it, and now get only the JWT token. So we're creating a middleware which will intercept the HTTP request and then get only the token for us. Later on, we're going to implement this. So let's have this middleware so created, and we can put this middleware in here in this authentication because it is part of this authentication. So when you look at this middleware, we're going to take in, it's going to accept our token service that we created, which validates and now get claims. We're implementing this factory-based middleware where we implement the interface itself. Then when this is called, we want to get the token from the header. We check if it is not now, we want to split it and I get a second one because you know all JWT header has the bearer and now the token. So you want to grab the token, which is the second one. You want to validate it in case it's false. You want to return an authorize. Now with this authorize, you want to set a response to 401. That's for status code. We set a content type as JSON and now we're using the problem details now to return a response, a nice response here. And that is for the unauthorized. Aside from that, in case it works and it is validated and it hasn't expired or it is correct, then you want to get the claims from the token. We can extract the claims from this. Then you want to update or authenticate the context. This is the context, so you set the user to this. You make sure we specify the auth type as a bearer. Then we want to set this principal to this user from the context. And now we can move on with the next middleware to execute. So this is what we are doing in our middleware. We're going to be using that in other services as well. But since this is all part of authentication, I think we need to build this and prepare this beforehand. Then when we get to using this, you know, we have done it already. We can go straight forward and now use this. Now is the time for us to create our authentication service extension, which actually going to generate the JWT token itself. Now we've created a method to validate it, but we haven't created it. So that is the time for us to do that. Now in this service or in this extension, we're creating a service collection which returns a service which returns service collection, and in here we are adding JWT authentication service. So you can see we add the service over here by specifying the default scheme as the bearer, as you can see from here. Then we want to add the bearer itself. So here we want to make sure we validate the issuer signing key, and we can get it from our JWT section, a key known as the key. That's where we can get the key from. We want to validate the issuer, so we want to get the issuer and the audience. We validate both, and now we want to validate lifetime, and also we set the clause key over there. So we did the same thing in the token service for validation, and we're using the same setup for the generation, you see, so they can match. Okay, so now that we are good with this, we are done with our shell library for now. Maybe later on we're going to, as we move on, when the need arises, we will come back and add or modify that until we complete our project. So we are not closing it for once, we will still be visiting it at all costs. Okay, now let's go back to our API, and now let's go to dependencies and let's add project reference. Make sure we click on the shed to add it. So let's go to our database seeder. Now let's go and see that. So when you look at this seeder, You can see from here that as soon as we make sure we create a table, we prepare this model, we add it, we create our claims from since it is administrator, we want to make sure we set all this to true because admin can perform all this. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to create our repo, a repository, which is going to handle the user, the claims, and also the token and the refresh token. I think it seems I forgot to tell you the type of architecture that we are using. Do you know? Yes, we are using vertical slice architecture. I've already made a video on how to work with vertical slice architecture. So if you haven't watched that video, to get more insight, you can do it. I'll put a link in this video description. So let's go and create our repository, and this is going to happen in the infrastructure folder. So when you check this interface with its method implementation, you want to create async. So you want to create the user, and if you want to create the user, we're going to use as you're going to have the endpoint specified in the user manager. So you can create async. We specify the model and on the password hash to create a user. In case it could not make success, we want to get the error and now throw this gRPC exception. Now with this exception is coming from gRPC. In there, you need to specify the status code and now the message that you want to pass it down. So you want to retrieve the message, the error message from here, and now pass it down. You want to get the user by email, also by ID, and I want to check if the password match, talking about the new password, the plain password, which is coming from the user, and also the old password. So this can be used for both authentication. I think this is for login. So when we get there, we're going to use password match because that is where we need to check if the password do match. Okay, so now we are done with this. Let's go and create the next interface, which is going to be a claim. Now this claim, you're going to have access to get claims from the user manager and also assign claims to a specific user. And as you can see from this, with this iClaim interface, you're having two methods in there: get claims and assign claims. We pass in the app user so we can extract the claims, and also we pass in the app user and also the claim so we can assign. And that is what we have in here. Now let's go to the next one where we're going to generate a token. So let's also create an interface and implementation for the token generation. Now you can see from this, we also have just one method in the interface which is going to generate a token. It has a payload of this app user. And in that, we having our claims over here. So when you come here down, you can see we generate this and we need to pass in this app user to the method, that's implementation. And we're going to generate a token. So here we have the claims already. So we're going to generate a token. We pass on the claim that we have in here. Then we want to create a security token. We get from the configuration, which is our key. We have our credentials and we need a token. We specify the issue and the audience. All these are going to be provided. Since we're reading from the JWT section, we have our claims, our expire date, and our signing credentials. We have it also stored here. So in this way, we can generate a token. Now with this user, we are not using this user. Maybe here, we don't need to use this user because we have the user details added to the claim that we're going to provide. So we can decide to skip this user. So for now, let's skip this user. When the need arises, we'll come and update that, okay? So let's skip this. Good. So we have this set. The next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to work on the refresh token. Now in the refresh token, we're going to save the token. We're going to check if the token is valid. We're going to add update. We can get a token and also get token by using the refresh token. Because you know when the token expires and if you want to retrieve the token itself, unless you pass on the refresh token, go to the database and retrieve it. Maybe we can do that. Let's see how we can implement this refresh token interface implementation. When you look at our service that we have here, our repo, we have this refresh token management. We're going to generate a token from here. And also we're going to get a fresh token whereby we specify the token itself. We'll loop into the database and I get a token and return. In case we could not find that, then return null. Now when you go to is token valid, we want to check if when you create a token, we're going to append 4 hours as a live time. Now when we check and today's date, as you can see from here, if today's date or if that date is greater than today's date, it means the token is still valid. If not, it is not valid. So anytime that today's date is bigger than the token expires date, it tells you that the token has expired, and then it's going to return false. So initially when you run this will return true if the token is valid. You want to update the database, and we also update it over here. Okay. Now the next thing that we need to do is to create a unit of work. Now in a unit of work, we want to manage the scope of these interfaces and the implementations. So in the same repo, we're going to create our, where it's going to be an interface for this, and they're going to specify unit of work, and then we're going to implement that. So these are the interfaces that we have created. I think 4 interfaces for now. When we check here, I think we have 4 interfaces: app user, claims, token, refresh token. So we have 4, and that's what we have registered them here. We have a save changes, so we can click on this to persist data at once. Let's implement this. So when you look at this repository, which is going to be the unit of work, we have our interface or injected. Then we want to initialize it. The reason why we do that is because, see, when you check the implementation, they need user manager configuration or context as a payload. And since we are not registering them as scope, instance of this cannot be created. So we need to provide them here. And that's the reason why we initialize it, and we provide the payload that they need. After that, you want to assign the value of this to what we have assigned over here. So when this repository is get called, the constructor get called also, and they're going to have value assigned to each. And that is why we get this as public, so we can use this outside the scope of this unit of work. Good. We also have our save changes, which is going to persist data to the database. That's great. So now that we have our interfaces, let's say our repository created, the next thing we're going to be doing here is we're going to create a feature. So this feature, we're going to have, I think, 3 features here: to create account, get new token, and also login account. These are going to be features that we can expose an endpoint to each of the feature. So let's see how we're going to work with that. We first need to create a folder, features. I'm going to create these features in each folder. So when you check here, we are having our request. In each feature, we're going to have the request, we're going to have validation, we're going to have the, since we're implementing CQRS, we can have our mapping configuration, we're going to have our command, then we have our handler, and lastly, we're going to have our service there. So that is our validation that we have created. Now, since we are creating the validation against this request, whereby we have the full name, email, password, and confirm password, we want to make sure that this has an email. Actually, it has this @ symbol with dot and etc. This is going to check it. And then we want to make sure this is not null for the password. You want to make sure it has, it contains one uppercase, at least one lowercase, and one special characters, and the length should be 8. So that's the reason why we're using this. And we want to make sure with the confirm password should match exactly with this password. So we're doing dot equal match this password. In case it doesn't, we want to say a password do not match. So that's our validation. Let's create our mapping configuration. So in our configuration tool, this is what we're doing. You know, when you have a look with this app user model, it has email, it has password hash, and it has username. But you know, in mapping, they do match values from a property which have, let's say, two properties with the same name. So let's say this property A has username. Property B or model B will also have the same username. Now, when you map them, directly it's going to work. But in case you have a foreign property which is not part of the model, that's where we need to configure that externally. So that's what we're doing. We want to map from this our source, to the destination of this app user. And here with the password hash, it is not found in the request. When you check this request, we have password, not password hash. So we need to map it over here. Then username too, we don't have it here, so we need to also assign value to it. Now with the username, if you do not assign value to it, you're going to have an issue. So we need to make sure, if you're not explicitly specifying username, then we need to assign the email as username to it. So that's our configuration. Now the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to create a command, and that is where we have entered the world of CQRS. Let's create a command. So in a command, it's a record. You can make it as a class, but when you do that, you need to specify the model here. Since you're using a record, we can put in straight on as a parameter, no, as a constructor over here. Now, once you have this command created, we need a request, which is referring to this request as a payload. Then we're going to return a boolean, so it could be true, could be false, after we are done processing. Let's create our handler. So in the handler, that is what we are doing here. We're passing in the command over there, as you can see from here. Now this command takes in a request. In that, first we want to validate, so we validate it. Now in case we have issue with the validation, we want to retrieve this error. Now in gRPC, we can throw this exception, which is RPC exception, and that is where we can specify the status code and add the message. Aside from that, here we want to map it in case everything works. We want to map the data from, so this is from the source to destination, and then we're going to create it. Now when you create this, we need not to save because this is create user manager, which is going to save it for us automatically. Aside from that, you want to get the user by email, because here we are going to create this. So we have the email over here. You want to get the full user, which comprises of the user ID. And in case if it is well created, we can have the details attached to that user. You want to grab it. And now from this, you want to populate the claims. With the claims, we need the row. So if a user creates an account, automatically we're going to have assign as user. Since we have an admin already, you can assign this current user as user. When we have user management feature, admin can go in and change the row or update the claims to change from user to admin or manager. So we want to get it, and from here we want to specify the email, we want to specify the full name. So maybe this is what I'm thinking of. This email, we can find it from this request, this command, right? And this command is what we mapped here as this map data. So we don't need an ID. So I think here we don't need to get a user. But if we don't get a user, check here. When we are done populating the claims, we need to assign claims, which takes in an app user and an claims. So definitely we need to get the user. So that's the reason why I'm not using the request.account or this map data as a value to these claims. Then we return true, because you know that this is going to return true. So as soon as it's able to run to the end, it means everything is successful. Then we can return true over here, this. Okay, maybe we can also surround it with try catch and then return false. But this is going to work because we've handled the errors that may pop up nicely. Good. Now we are done with this. Now the next thing that we're going to be doing here is we need to create our service. Now before we create our service, which will be used by the Protobuf, which is gRPC, we need to first create our proto file. So let's pause this. We're going to create a proto file first. Let's finish with the features. Then when we are done with our proto, we come back and update this. Okay, so don't close it, leave it open. Since our application is going to support refresh token, we need to also create that feature so the user can send the refresh token to get new token and refresh token as well. So let's do that. Now in our get new token handler, we have our command. First of all, we have our request, which takes in the refresh token, a property for that. We have our response, which is going to return after we are done processing. And in that, you're going to get new token and a new refresh token. We're going to create a validation. Since we have only one property here, we want to validate it. We create a command, which takes in this request, and that's what we have specified. And we're going to return a response of new token and a new refresh token. We handle that. We inject our unit of work and a validator, so we can validate the model. It's going to return, it takes in this command, it's going to return the response of what we specified here. Now in that, we want to validate it. In case it is not successful, we want to retrieve the error. And here I think the error is going to be 1. So we can decide to use first or default, because it's going to be 1, because you have only one validation rule. And then we can pass on, since we have this as error, we're going to be only 1. We don't need to join this. We can just return this error. Okay. Now this is going to be 1. Okay. Then we want to get a refresh token. Now the refresh token that is coming in from the user, we want to go to the table and now get it. In case it is null, return this, throw this exception. In case it is found, we want to validate the token lifetime. Is it expired? So this is going to validate it. It's going to be true or false. We get the user, prepare the user, we prepare the user's claim, and here we get the claims from the database. As you can see from this, we pass on this user, we get it from this claim interface. We get a new token, and then we're going to check, is the refresh token, is it valid? In case the refresh token has expired, then you want to generate a new refresh token. You want to update it, because when we create a token, we're going to save the refresh token to the database. So by the time the user is making a new refresh token request, the data already persists. So we're going to update it, and that's why we are using this update token from here. We save changes, and now we're going to return this new refresh token with the already created JWT. But in case this refresh token here is still valid, then we want to skip all this and now go and return the token and now the old. So this is going to be the new JWT token, and now this will be the old refresh token. Since it is not updated, we can still use it. So that's why we're doing this for our get refresh token. So at the end, we are looking up for a new token, and it may be a new refresh token or old refresh token, depending on the lifespan. So as we are done with this, we have our last feature to create, which is going to be login, because we have our create account handler, we have get new token handler, and now we're going to create our login account handler. When I look at this, we have our request, which takes in an email and password. We have our response, which is going to return to the user after processing, which takes in the JWT token and also the refresh token. We're going to validate them. We have an email and password. So we validate the two properties here. We create our command, which takes in this request, and that is what we have as an email and password. This is going to return a response of what we have specified. We're going to configure external properties in our request, because you will see that when you check our app user, it has email, it doesn't have password, but here we have password. So we need to configure this so this can match exactly with the password hash. And that is what we're doing here. But for email, it's going to be matched because you have email in the app user model. In our handler, we inject a unit of work and our validator, which takes in this request. We want to validate it in case there's error. We want to return to the user. In case there's no error, we want to get the user by email. Since you're going to log in, we first want to check the email and uncheck the password. We check the email. If it doesn't exist, you want to throw this exception. In case user exists, email exists, then I want to check the password to make sure it works. They do match. So we check if the password returns false, it means password is not correct. We want to return this. So as soon as it gets to this line, it means that the username is found, the password do match. So we can go ahead and move on. We want to get the user claims. We want to generate a token. We want to generate a refresh token. Now in here, we need to get refresh token by ID, because user may log in this time, and maybe, in expiration for the token is about 4 hours or 2 hours. Within that 2 hours period, user can decide to log in again. So when the user logs in again, we need to handle that. So when the user logs in again, while the password or the token, refresh token expire date isn't exceeded, we want to check. We want to get the user refresh token by ID, which is going to return a model of refresh token. So you can see refresh token. This token has a refresh token itself, and it has a username and an expire date. So we want to populate this model. We have the user ID over here. We have the token here as a new token generated. Then we have expire date set here as for 12 hours. Now we're going to check, is this user token is equal to null? It means this is the first time of this user logging in. If that, then we want to add it. Save changes, and I return this token, what we have generated, and return the refresh token. Maybe you might be asking, why are we not saving the refresh token, the JWT token? Yes. And JWT token, the server should be stateless, meaning it should not save or keep data of this token. But when the token is sent to the server, it must have everything, all the necessary requirements that the server will need to authenticate it. So we need not to save this token. We only save the refresh token. And now we do that. So when the user token is null, it means we want to add it for the first time, and I return this. But in case the token isn't null, user has already logged in, we're going to check, is the refresh token expired? If it is expired, then we want to generate a new token here. Let's say if the token isn't expired, as you can see from this is going to return false. Is the token valid? False. So if the token is not valid, we want to update the token, because the token has been added already. So you need to refresh the token. You need to get the token or the model ID, and now we update it and save changes, and we're going to return the token over here with this token. That is when this token has expired, we generate a new token, because here you can see we've generated a new token from here, and we're going to update it with the new token. And now when we update it, we need to return that token, this new token. So we need to return this. And now this token here should come from this refresh token, because that is the current token that we have updated. But in case token isn't expired, then there is no need for us to save this token. It's going to skip this. So there's no update. Then you're going to return the token, and now the already saved refresh token. which is coming from this user token model or this response. And I'm going to do that. So we are handling when user is logging for the first time, you are handling that. When user logs in, and even if the token hasn't expired and want to re-log in, we're also handling that. You see? Good. And now we've also handled when a token expires, a call to make or return a new token by sending or requesting with a refresh token. So these are the 3 features that you want an authentication system to have for now. Maybe in the course, we'll come back and update it once we develop the system. Now that we are good, we have these features implemented, we need to go and create our proto file. Now this proto file is what the gRPC service needs, and that is what actually the client also needs to see as an interface for consumption. Let's do that. So when you check your solution, we have a demo folder created, and we have one proto that is a grid.proto, and that is what we have in here. But we're not going to do, they're going to create a new one. So let's get rid of this. Now let's go in and create our Protobuf file to the same folder. I think before we do that, we also have a service. Maybe with this service, since we're going to implement this to each of the feature, I think we can get rid of this service as well. Yes, you can get rid of it and it still works. Okay. Now let's do that. So in this case, we have our service ready. We have our syntax, which are default, and also we have our namespace as our proto. We have our package identity to give each proto file a unique. Then we're going to import this annotation.proto. We haven't added that, but I think we should add it before you forget it. Yes. We need to create our response and our request messages. So we have our create account request. You know, for create account, we have a request and we have a response. In the request, we need all this. In the response, we need this. The same thing applies to the login. We need email and password as a request, and now for response, we're going to return a JWT and a refresh token, isn't it? For a new token, we need to pass in a refresh token as a payload, and in the response, we have a new JWT token, a new refresh token, isn't it? Good. And now the next thing that we're going to have here is we need to create our service. So I'm having a create account service, and here is going to take in this response, a request and return response. That is what each service is doing. Now in here, I want to expose this to an API. Let's say a RESTful API. I want you to make a request, HTTP request. By default, gRPC does not support HTTP requests unless you put it in this way or the other way around to make sure it is accessible through HTTP client call. Now, so we're going to do this, but this will not work currently unless we add two files, which is the annotations and our http.proto. We're going to add these files to our source code. Good. Now we also have our create. Now in there, we're going to have an endpoint of an identity / create. We're going to return everything. We're going to have the same thing for login, then the same thing for refresh token. So we see this is going to be like controller name, because controller name is the same thing. We're going to have these various endpoint or routes to the specific endpoint that we want. Now that we are done with this service, we need to go in and add these files. So where can we get these files? So go to this file. This link will give you access to, I think, GitHub, Google API. Then we have this http.proto. I'll put this link in the description. So grab all these, create a new file, name it as http.proto, and paste this and save it. Do the same thing for this annotation, because we need two files here, annotations.proto, and I will need this http.proto. So grab this as well, and I'll do same. I'll leave this link in the description, so just check the description if you can't see this, and now click on it to visit this page and grab them. Okay, now once you are good, I have them like this. So we have these files here. That's what I'm talking about. So we're going to cut these files. We go to our solution, then in here let's create a folder. We're going to name it as Google. Start from there, let's create another one, API, and then let's paste them inside this folder. Now I want to check our identity now. Proto file is Google API. So these are the folders to the file, and that is the folders route to the file. Great. I believe you are done. Amazing. So now that we are done with this, we're going to build this project. So click on this and build. But before we build, I think there's one thing that we should do. We need to make reference to this proto file. So in here, before we do that, go to click on this identity, and here you can see we having the proto file attached. So we need to attach it in here before we can move on with this. So we can do this to register that, or let's see the other way around. Let me just save this. Let's cut it. Let's go to our solution, then check your proto, right click on this identity, go to properties, and from here we have server only. Yes, that is what you want to make sure it is selected. So server only, then click on OK, and I could see it has been added for us here. I believe you can see this, isn't it? Good. So I'll just undo this, and it's the same thing as we have here. Include protos identity.protos, and you can see it is the same, right? So now let's remove this from here. Okay, so now that we have this, we are good. Let's go and build this project. Now you can go and create a service to each. So let's go to the features that we created, create new account. From here, let's update the service down here. So, you see from our service that this is what we're doing. Now we have our GPLC. Is it GPLC or gRPC? So gRPC service created. Now this, since you're using CQRS, you're going to inject the interface. You can use an iMediator or iSender. If we're using this iSender and this interface, we can have an endpoint of what send. So with this, we're going to send, and we're going to send with this command because this is going to be a create account. So we have this command. Remember that we have this command created here. So this command is what we need. It takes in this request. But the request that we created in the gRPC or the proto file is quite different from what we have here. So we need to map it. So we are using this mapster to map it to this request from the same request, which is the proto, to this request that we created here. Then we're going to send it. After you return the response, you want to return this response to the proto, which has exposed its endpoint so that client can access it. So we are making our API versatile in such a way that even if you want to access it through an HTTP call, you can get it. And if you want to access it through another service too, you can also get it. You see, because for authentication in the client, a client can log in. Now, when logging in from, let's say, a client, which is maybe front end like Blazor or Assembly, the client communicate directly to the API. And now with this API, we want to make an HTTP call. So in this case, we're making it available. Let's say if a service wants to authenticate a specific client, then this call will not be used by HTTP. Rather, it's going to be used this Protobuf call to make a call to this endpoint, which is this API that we have created. So we're making it the two ways open so that outside HTTP client call, outside the default gRPC call, you can also have an HTTP call as well. Okay, so now that we have this created, we are done with this. We go and do the same thing in our login and our get new token handler as well. And maybe you might be asking, where did we get this? We did not create this. This is going to be generated automatically as soon as you build the project. So that's the reason why we built it. Okay, so when you build it, you must have it. We did not create this. Just by default. So when you check here, we are doing the same thing. We inject our interface for the mediator. Then we want to map the request so we can have access to this request. And we're going to, after handling this, we're going to return this response, and we need to map it to the response that we created in the proto file. So we need to also map it over here, and I return this response. Now the last one that we need to do is to handle the login account handler. Let's create service for that. So login account handler. Let's do it here. So we are doing the same thing. As you can see, we map a request, we call the service, then we're going to return or map the response and return the response. Okay, now that we have all put in place, let's go and register this. So let's go to solution, then go to your program.cs file, and now let's register the services and also the configurations that we have done so far. So when you look at this, we have registered all the services that we have created or used in this application. First of all, we have a database registered, as you can see from this. So it means we need to specify connection string in the app settings. We are also adding identity. Since we are using identity manager, we need to also register the service. Then our JWT Authentication Service, because we are combining identity plus JWT service. So you need to register both. We need to add gRPC service, and that's what we are using. And then in order for us to get access to an HTTP or RESTful endpoint, we need to add JSON transcoding. Then for validation, we need to add this. This is coming from the Fluent API. Is it Fluent API? Fluent validation. Yeah, sorry for that. It's coming from Fluent validation. Then we have our mediator, CQRS. Then here we are raising the scope for this from the master, the package that we installed to configure external properties, as you can see from this. Then we are also raising a mapper, which is coming from the master. So line 22, line 29, both are talking about the same thing from mapper, from this master package that we installed. We did not create this. We did not create this. We need to actually combine them together by buying them as scope or singleton based on how you want it. Okay, this is created by default, and you can find that from the master package that we installed. We need to add gRPC service. Then when you go to the middleware pipeline, we're going to create scope. Now this scope, we want to get service for AppDB context, which is a database connection to a database. And also we need to get the user manager service so we can see the database. Now we want to make sure we migrate it. So when we build this, when we add migration, we're not going to update it. This is going to migrate it. Then it's going to seed. So when we run for the first time, this would called, and now to check in case the tables that we specified they are empty or they are null, then the following record that we specified are going to be inserted. But if they do have already prepared records, then it's going to skip that. Then we are having a gRPC services. These services are going to make it possible for a RESTful API service or API call to get into it and process it. Okay. Now the last thing that I think we need to do, we need to go and add a connection string. So we'll go to solution. Then in our app setting.json, that is where we need to specify our connection string in there. So let's do that. And also from this endpoint default, we are having HTTP 2. So you want to make sure it supports HTTP 1. That's where we can have access to RESTful service. So let's have it as HTTP 1 and 2. Then let's create a connection string. And also we need to specify our JWT section, talking about the key and the issuer and the audience. So I have my key, and that is a random string which is private to you. And I have the audience and the issuer referencing the same address of this API. Good. Now we're going to build this and apply migration. And when we are done, we can now go ahead and register, log in, and get a token. Let's see. So let's go and build this first. So it is succeeded. Now let's add migration. So you can see from here, I want to specify the output to this folder and now this folder, infrastructure and now data. So I go to my solution, I have infrastructure folder, I want the data folder. So I want to add it here. So that's how you want to do it, or you should do it. Okay. But before that, you make sure you add a name. Now when this built, or if the file is created, so we have an issue here that we need to solve. Let's go to our program. And when you check this, it should be register service from, I think, services from, what, assemblies. We have only one assembly. I think we also omitted our unit of work that we created. I'm not finding it here, and I think we did not. Okay, so that might be the cause. Let's make sure we have that also put in place. Now let's do it again. And that is done. So you can see that was the problem. Now fixed. So we need not to update it. When we run this project, it's going to update it. And as you can see, I believe this is not the first time of you seeing a file like this. So I need not to explain. That is a migration file. Now all these things are going to put in place as a real thing that you're going to see in a database. So this tells you what's going to happen. Now all that we're going to do here is to run this. And when we run this, take note, it's going to execute this in an update format. Check it out. Let's make sure I bring my console, make it ready, and that's what's going to happen. So you can see that migration is taking place, and now seeding is also taking place, isn't it? Now it is ready. You can see from here, it's working. Okay, so now we can go and test this to an HTTP call. Let's check it out. So and make sure you have to launch your Postman. That's what we're going to use to test. Aside from that, in order for us to access the database, you can download Beaver, which is this one is community version, so it is free. Yeah, so that is free. You can just download it and you connect to your database, click on the SQL server. So all the databases that you have, you can connect them from here. And then for now, you want to look at this, our claims. So these are claims. So as soon as the it's created, you see we are having these claims, can read, can update, can create, all set it through, and now here there's an admin, right? There's an email, this is the name. When we go back again and I'll look at for ASP.NET users, because we have one admin created. Well, look at, if we go back and I'll look up for refresh token, see what's going to happen. I have no token because this admin hasn't logged in. Now let's put it here. Let's have this ready. And in order for us to test this, let me close all this. We're going to click on new. Then we're going to test an HTTP. After that, we're also going to test our gRPC. So with this HTTP, let's go for the address. Click on the console. Is it the console? Not this one. Okay, so and let's go and grab an HTTPS. That is an address of this. Let's paste it here. This is not get, rather is post. And here the endpoint is identity/login, right? Let's go to the body, and here check the name, select raw, come here and add specify JSON. Now in that we need to provide email and password. So let's provide the same email, which is admin@admin.com. Then for password, that is admin@123. That is what we specified in there. Now if I click on send, let's see what's going to happen. Let's see if our gRPC service can get us. So we have an issue here, and it's saying value cannot be null. Okay, so that's for the token. Now audience is getting from the configuration key. We have it here. Issuer. Do you have an issuer? Okay, so that's wrong because we did not. It should be like this, the section and then the key, right? Good. That means we need to rerun this again. So now since we have the C that has C the database, it's not going to run on that again. Let's see, let's run this again and check this. I'll check the console again. Now let's see. Okay. So let's see. I could see that I could not insert. We have this. Let's the same 7172 HTTPS. So we can 7172. 7172. Okay, so now log in and let's check it out. You can see now we have our refresh token. and then we have our JWT token. You see that? So this tells you that our endpoint, now we're able to convert our gRPC service into a RESTful API that mobile apps, web apps, any app which runs on HTTP can make a RESTful API call to it. Now what about gRPC? Let's check that one out. So I'm going to grab the same thing from here. But before that, let's check dbeaver. Yeah, that's a dbeaver. If I refresh this, because now we are having this token, user ID, and a spice at, right? Good. Now let's check it from here. So click on new. Then from gRPC, click on that. Let's grab the address. That is 7172. Now let's paste it here and activate the TLS. Now we're going to select method, but before we do that, we need to import this proto file. So click on that. So it has opened to my identity API and our protos folder. This is my identity.proto. So I'm going to select on that. Then click on import. I'm done. Now check it out. I'll click on this. And I have create account, I have login account, I have get new token. Let's go for login account. Now I have this selected, go to message. Let's paste what we copied. Oh, this is gone. So we need to add it again, or we can just grab it from here. Paste it. The same thing. Now check this. So you're going to have a new token. But the first token is going to be the same because 12 hours is not yet. So we must have maintain the same token, refresh token, but the JWT token should be different. Let's check it out. So invoke this. Okay. Now check our JWT token. I think in order for us to see it, well, let's take the last value, which is DG, right? Now go here and check. The last value is P4, so that's different. Let's check the refresh token. It's S3, that's an S3, right? AA and AM equal. Check it out. S3 AM equal. So you see the refresh token is the same. As soon as the time is up, it's going to have a new token which will be updated. All right, so you can also test, or do you think we should test the other one? Yes. Let's test the create. So from create account, we need full name, and I'm going to provide Netcode-Hub. Email is user at user.com. Then we have confirmed password. Then we can have admin at admin. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Now click on invoke this. We are creating an account. We should return true if this works. But we are having an issue here. Let's go and check this out. So value cannot be null. What is the problem here? Let's check. Now we are creating an account from this. So you want to get this username, which is null, I think. Okay. Now let's put breakpoint from here. Let's click on continue. Let's click on invoke. Step in, we have the result. What's the result? None, so it is true, valid. Go to the next one, map the data from here, and now you can see we have this user. There's a security stamp. We're looking up for ID, looking up for email, then we have a full name. So full name is not there. Can you see this? We don't have full name, so that's the reason why we're having this issue. Now why did we not? Now from this request, let's see whether we have full name or not. We have full name, Netcode-Hub, but when mapping, full name did not come. Let's check our app user, pick definition. We have full name. Okay, you see it. So that is a problem. So here should be full name like this. and we need to make sure we change our full name. Then when we go to the database seed, I think we need to also make sure it is the same. Here's his full name, and that is full name. So that is a problem. Let's stop this. Let's make sure everything works. Let's rebuild solution again to check if everything works. We need to update the database. So add migration. We need to specify the path again. That's going to be second. Now let's run this. Okay, so now let's send and check it out. Okay, so this is also click. Now you want to continue on. Now let's see. All right, so we are still having an issue. Username is already taken. Okay, username is there. Continue on. Check from here. So you have username is already taken. Now you want to, let's check from the DB var to see if we have the username already. Refresh this. We have only one ASP.NET users. Refresh this, then we have it. So full name is now, username is this. Let's go and create this. Delete that. So save it, refresh. Now let's execute this again. And now this should work. Yes, so this is working. Now let's go for a refresh token. So check for this. Get new token. And now we need to provide a refresh token. Now where can we get the refresh token? Let's check our DB var, and we need to log in, but let's get it as an admin. Okay, so let's refresh this. Okay, now this Netcode hasn't logged in, but admin has. So let's go for a refresh token for the admin. We have only one. This is a refresh token, so we can grab this. Let's go back, paste it here, execute. Now let's see. Yeah, now you have new token, but we see still the refresh token hasn't expired. So the same token, but we have new token from here. If I just check it up, yeah, so this one is TY. Good. So that's a way to handle authentication. Now we have the basic authentication created. Now as time goes on, as we move on with the project, there are a lot of features that we're going to be added. For now, we have only 3 features implemented. That is create, login, and now get new token, which actually the basis of authentication. All right, so that is it. I believe he's going to learn a lot after watching this, and I believe you've done so. All right, so if you like this, then don't forget to like this video. It actually pushes me to do more, and I believe you want me to do more as well. All right, so catch you again. Until then, take care.